479 BC. A Greek army surrounds a fortified camp on the flat land near Plataea. Inside the walls are thousands of Persians. They are not ready for a new fight. The fighting is already decided. They are defeated, trapped, waiting. What happens next is not really a battle. It is something else. In school you learn about Thermopylae, 300 Spartans, a narrow pass, a last stand, a heroic death. The story feels clean, simple, easy to honor. But most people never learn what came later. 11 months later, when Spartans returned in force. Not 300. Not a token line. 10,000 Spartans marched back north. And they did not come alone. They brought the largest Greek army ever assembled. And they brought a different mood. Not courage. Vengeance. Ancient vengeance was not a speech. It was not a handshake after a duel. It was not "we won, now we forgive." Vengeance meant a decision that mercy is finished. By the time the sun sets on the plains of Plataea, the dead will not be counted in hundreds. They will be counted in tens of thousands. And the survivors, only about 3,000 men from an army that once looked unstoppable, will carry a message back toward Persia. A message stronger than any letter. This is the story of how Greece answered Thermopylae, and why even the winners would struggle with what they did. August 480 BC. Thermopylae, a narrow pass. Heat dust. Tight space. King Leonidas is dead. Xerxes orders his body abused. Cut, mutilated. Displayed. A warning. Around him lie the bodies of the defenders. Spartans. Teshpins. The bands. The Persians did not only kill them. They made them into a lesson. Greek bodies are stripped. Left in the summer sun. For days the Persian army marches past them. 3 days of rot. 3 days of message. This is what happens when you resist the King of Kings. But Thermopylae was never designed to win. It was a trade. Lives exchanged for time. And once the Persians sweep south, the real question becomes, what did that time buy? September 480 BC. Pausanias, Xerxes' trusted general, moves through central Greece. City after city. Advance. Punish. Advance again. The Spia is burned. Not looted and left. Burned all the way. Plataea suffers the same. Systematic destruction. This is not simple conquest. This is erasure. Then Athens. The city is empty. The people fled earlier. They crossed to Salamis in the Peloponnese. They left homes behind. The Persians enter silence. Then fire. Temples burn. Houses burn. The Acropolis becomes smoke. Even ancient buildings are turned to ash. Sacred relics are destroyed. The flames burn for days. When the fired eyes, Athens remains as black stone. This is not only war. This is cultural destruction. A message written in ruins. We can wipe you out. Then Salamis. A narrow strait. Limited space. Bad water for a huge fleet. The Greeks spring a trap. Persian ships cannot maneuver. Too many. Too crowded. Greek triremes hit them. Ram board. Sink by sunset. Persia's naval power breaks. Xerxes watches from shore. He had set up a throne. Gold confidence. He watches the plan dissolve into fire and seawater. Soon, he decides. He retreats east with part of the army. He leaves Pausanias with the rest. The message to Pausanias is simple. This should already be done. Finish it. Winter, 480 to 479 BC. Pausanias pulls back into the north. Thessaly, Macedonia. He still has a massive force. Persian infantry, cavalry, and Greek allies. Cities that chose submission instead of ruin. Back in Sparta, winter is different. The city debates. Plans. Delay. Fear no one says out loud. Pausanias becomes regent. Young. Unproven. But he carries the weight of Leonidas. And a quiet question sits inside every meeting. What kind of victory are we building? Because now the Greeks are not only surviving. They have held. They have won at sea. Now they must choose what winning will mean on land. Spring 479 BC. Pausanias tries diplomacy. He sends Alexander of Macedon to Athens. Greek by blood. Persian by obedience. He brings an offer that sounds almost impossible. Rebuild Athens. Restore temples. Pay for homes. Give land. Give trade. Keep local rule. All Athens must do is accept Persian supremacy and abandon the Greek alliance. Athenians gather in their temporary shelters, tents, borrowed rooms. Across the water, their city is ash. The offer would solve everything fast. They refuse. Not calmly, violently. One man speaks in favor of accepting. The crowd stuns him. His wife and children are killed as well. The message to Persia is not polite. There will be no deal. There will be no surrender. Pausanias answers the refusal with fire. He returns to Athens. Still empty. Still quiet. This time he does not just burn. He finishes. Walls pulled down. Wells filled with rubble. Fields ruined. This is not conquest. This is punishment. When he leaves again, Athens is not a wounded city. It is a broken one. To destructions in less than a year. Now Pausanias chooses his battlefield. Plataea, near Plataea. Flat plains. Perfect for cavalry. He camps by the Asopus River. Water nearby. Thebes stands behind him, allied to Persia. A safe base. Pausanias builds a fortified camp. Wooden walls. Defensive lines. Supplies. Then he waits. He is daring the Greeks. If you want the end, come here. Come where my cavalry can kill you. Athens sends urgent messages to Sparta. March now or we are finished. For weeks Sparta hesitates. The Peloponnese is defensible. The isthmus is fortified. Why risk a field battle? But in the end Sparta moves. And when they move fully. Pausanias mobilizes everything. 5,000 Spartan hoplites. The full citizen levy. 5,000 perioi. Free men under Spartan control. And tens of thousands of helots as light troops. An enormous number. More than usual. More than comfortable. And the march north begins. Allies join along the way. Corinth. Megara. Sicyon. Epidaurus. Troyzon. Athens joins with what it has left. 8,000 hoplites. By the time the combined force reaches the hills above the Persian camp, the Greek army is enormous. Around 110,000 men. The largest Greek army ever assembled. And now both sides look down at the same plain. Both sides understand the problem. If either attacks at the wrong moment, they lose. So they wait. The Greeks take the high ground. They spread along the lower slopes of Mount Cit-Heron, above the plain, above the Persian camp. Anyone who understands ancient war can see the balance instantly. The Greeks have heavy infantry, hoplites in bronze armor, large shields locked together, long spears meant for crushing frontal combat. On solid ground they are almost unstoppable. The Persians control the plain. Their cavalry can move freely. Their archers can fire in waves. Their strength is speed and space. If the Persians charge uphill, they die. If the Greeks charge downhill too early, they get cut apart. So neither side attacks. They wait. Day after day. Tension builds. Food runs low. Water becomes precious. Then on the third day, the waiting breaks. Persian cavalry rides out. Not a full assault. They probe. They push close to the Greek lines. Too close. Athenians respond. Hoplites advance with archers supporting them. The terrain is uneven. The fighting turns chaotic. Horses wheel. Spears brace. Arrows fly. In the confusion, a single arrow changes everything. It strikes the horse of Mecistius, the commander of Persian cavalry. The animal collapses. Mecistius hits the ground hard. He tries to fight on foot. He is wearing ornate armor, gold minus decorated. Heavy. The Athenians swarm him. Persian cavalry tries to reach him. Too late. The Athenians drag Mecistius into their formation. They tear his armor apart, piece by piece. They stab him through every gap. When the Persians finally retreat, Mecistius is dead, and the Greeks have his body. They place it on a cart. They parade it through the lines. Every soldier sees it. Morale surges. On the Persian side, grief explodes. Cavalrymen wail loudly. They shave their heads. They cut their horses' manes. They strip their armor. Mecistius was not just a commander. He was Mardanius's closest companion. A trusted friend. The psychological balance shifts. Days pass. Skirmishes continue, but no full battle. Then Pausanias strikes where the Greeks are weakest. Water. Persian cavalry scouts locate the Gargave iron spring. the main Greek water source. Under cover of darkness they move. They destroy it carefully. They fill it with dirt, with rubble, with corpses. They divert what remains. Poison the flow. By morning, the Greek army is in crisis. Over 100,000 men. No reliable water. Greek commanders gather. Pausanias, baristas of Athens, leaders from Corinth and other cities. The options are all bad. Stay and die of thirst. Attack uphill, disadvantage reversed, and die under arrows. Retreat in daylight, and be slaughtered by cavalry. Pausanias orders a night maneuver, a controlled withdrawal. The center will fall back toward Plataea, where other springs exist. The left wing will move to new high ground. The right wing, Spartans and Tegeans, will hold until the others are clear, then withdraw in order. On paper, it works. In reality, it falls apart. Night retreats are chaos even in peace. Units lose direction. Orders don't travel. Men panic. Some units retreat too far. Others stop too early. Formations dissolve. By dawn, the Greek army is scattered, separated across miles of broken ground. From his camp, Pausanias sees it. Greeks withdrawing. Lines broken. To him, it looks like collapse. What he does not see is crucial. The Spartans are still in formation, deliberately slow, disciplined. The Athenians have reformed on new ground. This is not a rout. It is a mistake. But mistakes look like opportunity. Pausanias gives the order. Advance. The Persian army pours out of the camp. Elite infantry first. The immortals. Light armor. Short spears. Wicker shields. Behind them, troops from across the empire. Medes. Bactrians. Indians. Succor cavalry moves on the flanks. Greek allies of Persia march at the rear. Pausanias rides near the front. Visible. Encouraging. The target is clear. The Spartan right wing, still withdrawing, seemingly vulnerable. Pausanias watches them approach. 10,000 Spartans and Tegeans, still moving backward, still holding formation. Then he commands, halt. The line stops. Shields lock. Spears level. A ranks deep. A wall of bronze. But there is a problem. Greek custom demands favorable omens before attack. Sacrifices are made. The signs are bad. Again and again, Persians move closer. Archers raise bows. Thousands of arrows fly. They rain down on the Spartans. Men fall. Arrows find gaps. Necks. Arms, faces. The Spartans hold. They cannot advance. They cannot retreat. More sacrifices. Still bad signs. More men die. Finally, the order comes. Whether the omens change, or Pausanias chooses to act anyway. Advance. The Spartan phalanx does not charge. It moves. Slow steady. Unbreakable. The Persians brace. They plant their shields. They ready their spears. The collision is brutal. Spartan spears punch through wicker shields. Through light armor. Into flesh. A-ranks push forward. The Persian front collapses. But the Persians do not flee immediately. They fight desperately. They grab spears with bare hands. Their palms split. They pull weapons aside to open gaps. They swarm with swords and daggers. For minutes that feel endless. The outcome is uncertain. Then Pausanias goes down. Accounts differ. A stone strikes his head. A spear reaches him. His horse is killed. What matters is this. The Persian commander is dead. Word spreads fast. Pausanias is dead. The Persian center wavers. Then breaks. Once the line breaks, the battle changes. This is no longer combat. It is pursuit. Persians run. Some toward the camp. Some into the open. Greek light troops surge forward. Helots. Peltasts. They run down fleeing men. They cut them down in the plain. The field becomes a slaughter ground. On the left, Athenians fight the bands. Greeks against Greeks. The fighting is hotter. More even. But when news of Pausanias spreads, the bands retreat. Thousands of Persians reach the fortified camp. They close the gates. Inside are supplies. Treasure. Non-minus combatants. The camp holds. At first, Greek forces surround it. They try to break in. The Spartans struggle. They are not siege fighters. Then the Athenians find a weak point. They concentrate their assault. The The wooden wall collapses. Greek troops flood inside. What follows is recorded by multiple ancient sources. Inside the camp, resistance collapses almost instantly. No prisoners are taken. Every Persian soldier is killed. Tent by tent, section by section. Servants, camp followers, families. No distinction. By nightfall the Persian army is gone. Herodotus gives numbers. Over 100,000 Persians entered Greece. About 3,000 survived. Modern historians debate the totals, but even conservative estimates mean tens of thousands dead. The Greek losses, tiny by comparison. This was not a normal battle. This was elimination. When the noise finally fades, the plain is quiet. Too quiet. Bodies cover the ground, armor crushed, weapons abandoned. The Greek soldiers stand among the dead and try to understand what they have done. This was not how battles usually ended. In most wars an army breaks and runs. Men throw down shields. They scatter. Most survive. That is how ancient warfare normally worked. Plataea is different. Here, the pursuit did not stop. The killing did not slow. When the Persians reached their camp, the Greeks did not negotiate. They did not offer surrender. They did not talk about ransom. They broke the walls. They went inside. And they finished it. By nightfall, almost no one is left alive. After the camp is cleared, the Greeks take inventory. The wealth is enormous. Gold and silver, bullion meant to pay the army. Jewelry, luxury goods. Treasures taken from burned Greek cities. Athens, Plataea, the Spiae. Everything is gathered. Nothing is left scattered. Pausanias orders the plunder counted and recorded. 10% is set aside for the gods, dedicated to sanctuaries across Greece. The rest is divided among the cities that fought. Sparta receives the largest share. The Helots, the enslaved laborers who fought as light troops, receive nothing. Their blood bought the victory. They are not rewarded. Then Pausanias does something symbolic. He orders modern assessed and preserved. Inside, Persian luxury remains untouched. Gold plates, fine fabrics, servants waiting. Pausanias orders a Persian Minas-style meal prepared. Then he orders a Spartan meal prepared beside it. Simple food, black broth, plain bread. He invites Greek commanders to look. The contrast is deliberate. This, the display says, is what they brought to conquer us. And this, it implies, is what defeated them. But there is another message beneath it. One no one says out loud. This is what we did to win. News spreads fast. Some say the Greek fleet wins again that same day, far away on the coast of Asia Minor. Whether the timing is exact or shaped by legend, the result is clear. Invasion is over. Persia will not try again. Greece survives. But survival is not the only outcome. Something else has changed. Athens begins to rebuild. Not gently, not slowly. Walls go up fast. Bigger than before. The navy expands. Larger than any Greece has seen. The lesson is clear. Defense alone is not enough. Sparta returns south. But what happened at Plataea follows them. Other Greeks look at them differently now. Not just respect. Not just fear. Something heavier. Poets write victory songs. Temples are built. Monuments raised. Names are carved. Cities honored. But certain details are missing. The breach of the camp. The hours after. They are passed over quickly. If mentioned at all, Herodotus records the numbers, but does not dwell on meaning. Later writers hesitate more. Some ask quietly whether the scale of killing was necessary, whether it served a military purpose. Once the battle was already won, no one answers clearly. The survivors who reach Persia carry the real message. Not speeches, not treaties, stories. They tell of an army that did not stop. Of Greeks who, once victorious, erased everything in front of them. The message spreads. Greece is no longer only defensive. When it wins, it destroys. Soon after, the Greeks turn on their own. Thebes, which supported Persia, is confronted. Sparta demands the leaders be surrendered. Thebes resists. The Greeks besiege the city. Eventually, the leaders are handed over. They are executed. The city itself is spared. This matters. It proves something important. The Greeks were capable of restraint. They chose not to use it at Plataea. That choice is the difference. In the years that follow, the Delian League forms. An alliance. Defense against Persia. Soon it becomes something else. An empire. Athens leads it. Cities that try to leave are punished, besieged, forced back, sometimes enslaved. Sparta watches. Tension grows. The war that will tear Greece apart has its roots here. At Plataea, victory taught the Greeks what total force could accomplish. And once learned, that lesson cannot be unlearned. Plataea is not remembered like Thermopylae. Thermopylae is easy. Bravery, sacrifice, defeat with honor. Plataea is harder. It forces a different question. What happens after you win? What happens when survival is no longer the only goal? At Plataea, the Greeks did not just defend their world. They showed what they were willing to do to protect it, and that knowledge stayed with them. Plataea solved the war, but it created another problem. The invasion was finished. The Persian army was gone. Yet the memory did not settle. Victories are supposed to feel clean. Relief. Celebration. Closure. Plataea did not feel like that. Greek commanders returned home with treasure, with honor, with songs written about their success, but also with silence, because there was no clean way to explain why so few Persians survived. Ancient armies were used to killing. They were not used to erasing. At Plataea, the line between battle and execution vanished. The decision to continue killing after the rout was not automatic. It required orders, coordination, time. Someone had to decide that surrender would not be accepted. Someone had to decide that the camp would be breached and cleared completely. That decision came from the top. Pausanias, the allied commanders, men trusted to end the war. They chose certainty over mercy, because mercy carried risk. If Persian soldiers learned, they could regroup. If officers escaped, they could report back. If the invasion force survived in part, Persia might return. Plataea was designed to answer that possibility forever. And it did. Persia never again attempted a full minus-scale invasion of mainland Greece. From a strategic view, the choice worked perfectly. From a human view, it left scars. Greek writers struggle with Plataea. They record it, they praise it, but they do not linger. Herodotus lists numbers. He names cities. He moves on. Later historians grow more uncomfortable. They do not condemn the Greeks. They cannot. But they hesitate. They ask questions instead of giving answers. Was this necessary? Did victory require annihilation? Or was this vengeance carried too far? No Greek city openly criticizes Plataea, but no Greek city builds its identity around it either. Thermopylae becomes the symbol. Plataea becomes the foundation. One is spoken of. The other is relied upon. There is another reason Plataea feels uneasy. It changes Greek behavior afterward. Before the Persian Wars, Greek fighting was limited. City against city. Seasonal campaigns. Rules. After Plataea, those limits weaken. Athens builds an empire. Sparta enforces obedience. Cities that resist are punished harder than before. Plataea proves something dangerous. That complete destruction is possible. And once proven, it becomes an option. Sparta itself is changed. The city had always valued discipline, control, restraint. But at Plataea, Spartans stood at the center of annihilation. They did not break. They did not hesitate. Other Greeks notice. Respect deepens. Fear follows. Sparta's authority grows. But so does distance. They are no longer just defenders of Greece. They are men who ended an army. Plataea also reshapes memory. The Greeks learn something uncomfortable. Defeat can unite people easily. Victory can divide them. After Plataea, old rivalries return. Athens and Sparta drift apart. The cooperation that saved Greece does not survive peace. Within a generation, Greeks will kill Greeks, on a scale rivaling Persian destruction. And the lesson of Plataea will be used again. Plataea forces a question that history does not like to ask. When does defense become domination? When does survival become justification for anything that follows? The Greeks never fully answered that. Instead, they moved forward. They built. They fought. They argued. They remembered Thermopylae with pride. They remembered Plataea with care, because Plataea showed them who they could be, and that knowledge was harder to live with than defeat ever was. Thermopylae is remembered because it fits the story we like to tell. A small force, overwhelming odds, certain death, courage without consequence. Plataea is different. Plataea asks what happens after courage succeeds, after the enemy breaks, after survival is no longer in question. It asks what a civilization does when it realizes it has the power to end a threat completely. At Plataea, the Greeks learned that lesson. They learned that victory could be absolute, and once learned, it could not be forgotten. In pure military terms, Plataea was perfect. The Persian field army in Greece was destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. No regrouping, no second invasion. From that day forward, Persia would fight Greece indirectly, through diplomacy, money, influence. Never again with an army on Greek soil. If the goal was safety, Plataea achieved it forever. But safety came at a price. Ancient warfare usually left survivors. Routed armies ran. They scattered. They lived. Plataea did not follow that pattern. The killing continued. Long after resistance ended, the fortified camp became a boundary that the Greeks chose to cross. And once inside, they chose not to stop. That choice is the heart of Plataea. Not the phalanx. Not the tactics. The decision to erase. Greek monuments do not explain this. They list cities. They honor the dead. They celebrate unity. They do not describe what happened inside the camp. They do not need to. Every Greek who fought there knew. Every Persian who heard the story understood. The monument was not only a celebration, it was a warning. The title of this story asks, how 10,000 Spartans avenged the 300. The answer is not heroic. They did not avenge them with sacrifice. They avenged them with certainty, by ensuring that no army like Xerxes would ever return, by making the cost of invasion unbearable, by turning vengeance into policy. But vengeance is not clean. It does not end when the enemy is gone. It changes the people who use it. After Plataea, Greek warfare becomes harder. Cities are punished more severely. Empires replace alliances. The cooperation that saved Greece collapses into rivalry. Within decades, Greeks will devastate their own world, in wars as destructive as anything Persia attempted. Plataea did not cause that alone, but it made it possible. History often teaches Thermopylae because it is easy to admire. Plataea is harder. It forces us to face an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the most troubling moments are not defeats, they are victories. Victories that reveal what people are capable of. Once restraint is no longer required. In 479 BC, the Greeks won their freedom. They also learned how far they were willing to go to keep it, and that knowledge echoed through everything that followed. The Greeks did not talk about Plataea the way they talked about Thermopylae. Thermopylae was safe. It made sense. A small group died bravely. They lost, but they lost beautifully. Plataea did not offer beauty. It offered results. And results are harder to live with. For years after the battle, Greek veterans carried the memory home. They did not describe it in detail. They did not need to. Everyone knew the numbers. Everyone knew how few Persians survived. In taverns and homes, the story was shortened. We broke them. We ended the invasion. The rest stayed unspoken, because describing it meant reliving it. For the Persians, the lesson was immediate. The empire was vast. Losing one army was not fatal, but the loss of Plataea was not normal. It was not a defeat that could be corrected. It was an annihilation. An invasion was erased so thoroughly that even reporting the failure was dangerous. Messengers returned with stories that frightened governors and generals, not because the Greeks were stronger, but because they were relentless. Persia adjusted. Money replaced armies. Gold replaced spears. Greek cities would be divided, bribed, manipulated, never again invaded directly. Plataea worked. Inside Greece, the effect was slower, but deeper. Athens looked at Plataea and drew one conclusion. If we want to survive long Minestone, we must control the sea. They rebuilt their fleet. Bigger, permanent. Walls went up faster than before. Long walls connecting city to port. Athens would never again be helpless. Sparta looked at Plataea and drew a different lesson. We win by discipline, by endurance, by breaking the enemy completely. Sparta did not build walls. It trusted men. But both cities learned the same truth. Power works best when it is decisive. Other Greek cities watched closely. They remembered how Persia burned Athens. They also remembered how the Greeks answered. The message was clear. If you stand with Greece, you may be protected. If you stand against it, you may be erased. This lesson would be applied again and again. There is a reason Plataea does not live comfortably in popular memory. It disrupts the simple story. It shows that moral clarity fades quickly once survival is secured. Before Plataea, the Greeks fought to live. After Plataea, they fought to dominate. Not immediately, not consciously, but the door was open. Even Pausanias does not escape the shadow. He returns to Sparta celebrated, but whispers follow him about arrogance, about cruelty, about ambition. Later in life he will be accused of conspiring with Persia. The accusation may be false, but it is telling. The man who ended the Persian invasion could no longer be trusted fully by his own people. Plataea elevated him. Plataea also made him dangerous. This is the quiet pattern of history. Great victories do not end conflict. They change its shape. Plataea ends the Persian threat. It begins Greek imperial rivalry. The Delian League grows. Sparta grows nervous. Trust erodes. Within a generation, Greek cities will fight one another with the same intensity they once used against Persia. And the memory of Plataea's will be part of that, because Plataea proved something irreversible, that annihilation is possible, that once an enemy breaks, you can choose not to stop. And once that choice is made, it becomes available forever. Thermopylae inspires. Plataea instructs. One teaches courage, the other teaches consequence. The Greeks needed both, but they preferred to remember only one. Plataea did not end Greek violence. It redirected it. When the Persian threat disappeared, the unity that held Greece together began to dissolve. Fear had been the glue. Once fear was gone, old rivalries returned. And now those rivalries were backed by experience. Experience and total victory. Athens moved first. The Delian League was presented as protection, mutual defense, shared security. At the start, it felt reasonable. Persia was still powerful. Revenge was possible. Cities contributed ships or money. Athens organized. But slowly, quietly, the alliance changed. Some cities tried to leave. Athens refused. Tribute became mandatory. Ships were seized. Walls were torn down. Resistance was punished harshly. Athens told itself this was necessary. Security required control. Plataea had taught them what incomplete victory looked like. They would not repeat that mistake. Sparta watched this with growing concern. Athens was not just rebuilding, it was expanding. Its navy dominated the Aegean. Its wealth grew. Its confidence hardened. Sparta had defeated Persia on land. Athens was becoming powerful everywhere else. The old balance was gone. Plataea sat in the background of every decision. Unspoken but understood. If war came again, it would not end with compromise. It would end with destruction. That knowledge shaped strategy. It shaped fear. It shaped paranoia. Smaller Greek cities felt the pressure first. They remembered what happened to Persian allies. They remembered Thebes. They knew what resistance could cost. Some submitted early. Others gambled. Few won. By the time the Peloponnesian War began, Greek warfare had changed. Sieges were longer. Punishments were harsher. Cities were starved. Populations were killed or enslaved. The language of necessity returned. We must do this or they will do it to us. Plataea had normalized that logic. Even Sparta was not immune. When Sparta finally defeated Athens, it faced the same question the Greeks faced at Plataea. What do you do with a defeated enemy? Some Spartans wanted Athens destroyed, walls leveled, people scattered. In the end, they chose restraint, not mercy, calculation. Athens was useful land, but the debate itself shows the change. Before Plataea, destroying a Greek city would have been unthinkable. After Plataea, it was an option seriously discussed. This is the legacy of decisive victory. It solves one problem completely. It creates new ones everywhere else. The Greeks never forgot how it felt to stand on the plains of Plataea with the enemy broken, and the choice to stop or continue. They chose to continue, and that choice echoed for generations. To understand Plataea, you have to understand revenge, the way ancient Greeks understood it. Not as emotion, as order. In the ancient world, vengeance was not optional, it was expected. If you failed to answer an injury, you invited another. Mercy did not signal strength, it signaled weakness. And weakness attracted destruction. This was not cruelty for its own sake, it was survival logic. The Persians had burned Athens twice. They had desecrated temples. They had mutilated the body of a king. In Greek thinking that demanded response, not balance, not forgiveness. Erasur, anything less meant the offense was unfinished, and unfinished offenses came back. At Plataea, the Greeks stood at a dangerous point. They had won the battle. The enemy was broken. Now came the moment that mattered most. If they stopped, if they accepted surrender, if they allowed the Persian army to retreat intact, they would send a message. You can do this to us and live. That message would not stay in Persia. It would spread. Other powers would hear it. Other enemies would test it. In the ancient mind, that was more dangerous than slaughter. This is why the pursuit did not stop. This is why the camp was breached. This is why no prisoners were taken. The Greeks were not losing control. They were enforcing a rule. You invade Greece, you do not go home. This does not make the killing gentle. It makes it deliberate. Plataea was not rage. It was policy. A decision made by leaders who believed that future wars were being decided in that moment, and they were not entirely wrong. The problem is what that logic does over time. Once annihilation works, it becomes tempting. Once mercy is framed as danger, cruelty becomes safety. That is the transformation Plataea begins. Greek writers sensed this. They did not use modern moral language. They did not speak of crimes, but they felt the weight. They wrote carefully. They shortened descriptions. They moved past the worst moments quickly, not because they were ignorant, because they understood. Some victories demand silence. Later generations inherited the lesson, without fully understanding its cost. Athens used it against rebel cities. Sparta used it against rivals. The language was always the same. Necessity, security, prevention. Plataea provided the example. This is why Thermopylae became myth. It asks nothing difficult of the listener. Honor, sacrifice. Lost Plataea asks everything. It asks whether survival justifies annihilation. It asks whether victory can corrupt as deeply as defeat. It asks whether learning when to stop is harder than learning how to fight. The Greeks never answered those questions clearly. Instead, they lived with the answers they chose. They built empires. They destroyed cities. They fought one another, with a violence sharpened by experience. And in the background, Plataea remained, a reminder of what happens when stopping feels more dangerous than continuing. Plataea is not an isolated event. It is a case study in what happens when one side decides to win completely. Complete victory is rare, and it is always dangerous. This is why the historical record is filled with near victories, battles that almost went to total annihilation but didn't, wars that teetered on the edge of complete destruction but pulled back. Historians tell stories about wars and battles as if they are linear, as if each victory leads to something better. Each defeat teaches an inevitable lesson, but the truth is far messier. The kinds of victories Greece achieved at Plataea don't belong to the realm of idealized, noble triumphs. They are victories that destroy the idea of mercy. They are victories that break the idea of restraint. And they are victories that often lead to the next war. Think about the Roman Empire. Its most successful military conquests came not just from superior tactics, but from total eradication. Rome didn't just defeat its enemies. It wiped them off the map. When Rome conquered Carthage in the Punic Wars, it didn't just take the city. It burned it, salted the earth. Carthage was destroyed so thoroughly that for centuries, no one dared question Roman power. Yet this annihilation created a ghost. After Carthage's fall, Rome turned inward. The very tactics that ensured its dominance led to the collapse of its empire. By the time it fell, Rome had become a machine of destruction that had consumed the very thing it once tried to protect. This pattern repeats throughout history. In 1945, after the Second World War, The Allies didn't just defeat Germany and Japan, they erased their ability to wage war. Nazi Germany was dismantled, its leaders tried, executed or exiled. The cities were bombed, the people starved, and the nation rebuilt in a way that guaranteed no immediate resurgence. But that complete victory left scars. Germany was divided, Japan rebuilt but under the watchful eyes of the U.S. Both countries struggled with the aftermath of total defeat. While they rebuilt, they had to reckon with the violence that was their undoing. When you erase an enemy completely, you ensure that they cannot strike back, but you also create a future where that enemy, or the memory of them, can never be fully healed. Victory becomes a question of whether the price of survival was worth the loss of humanity, whether the enemy's destruction was really the cost of peace, or just the first step toward a new, more complex war. In the case of Plataea, the Greeks didn't just defeat the Persians, they erased them from Greece. It was more than just a military victory, it was a psychological one, a decision that changed the rules of warfare for an entire civilization. The Greek mindset shifted. Victory became not a means to an end, but the end itself. The destruction of Persia wasn't enough. It had to be permanent. And in the process, the Greeks unknowingly started to mimic the very thing they fought against. The Persians came to erase Greece, and the Greeks in turn erased the Persian threat by destroying not just the army, but the very idea of resistance. This is where history becomes uncomfortable. When does victory stop being a defensive survival and become something else? It's a question that extends beyond the battlefield. Plataea tells us that once you decide to win completely, you enter a cycle of escalation. You do not go back. And that cycle feeds new cycles, leaving behind unresolved tensions, unhealed wounds, and unanswered questions. Plataea closes the Persian Wars, but it opens something else. Before this moment, Greek history is defined by survival. After this moment, it is defined by choice. That Thermopylae, the Greeks had no choice. They fought because they had to. They died because retreat meant extinction. That kind of story is easy to understand. That Plataea, the Greeks had options. They could stop. They could negotiate. They could accept surrender. They chose none of those. They chose certainty. They chose a victory so complete that it would never need to be repeated. And in doing so, they crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. This is why Plataea feels heavier than Thermopylae. Thermopylae asks only one question. Would you stand? Plataea asks a harder one. Would you stop? Stopping requires restraint. Stopping requires trust. Stopping requires believing the enemy is finished. The Greeks did not believe that. They believed memory itself was a weapon, and they decided to carve that memory into the Persian world with blood. History often praises restraint, but history is written by those who survive. At Plataea, survival was guaranteed, only if restraint was abandoned. That is the uncomfortable truth. The Greeks did not become monsters. They did not lose their humanity in a single day. They made a calculation, and the calculation worked. Persia never invaded again, but success has consequences. After Plataea, Greek power grows sharper. Cities fall more easily. Wars last longer. Punishment becomes routine. The idea that this must be finished completely returns again and again. Athens uses it. Sparta uses it. Both justify it the same way. Necessity. That word traces straight back to Plataea. Plataea teaches us something history rarely says out loud. The most dangerous moment is not when a civilization is weak. It is when it realizes how strong it is. When it understands that it can destroy, not just defeat. And when it decides that destruction is safer than mercy. This is why Plataea never becomes a simple legend. It does not fit on a statue base. It cannot be summarized in one noble phrase. It lingers instead, in silence, in omission, in careful writing, because it forces us to confront a truth that survives every era. Victory does not end moral struggle, it relocates it. It shifts the question from, can we survive? To what are we willing to do now that we can? In 479 BC, the Greeks answered that question one way. They won their freedom, they secured their future, and they learned something about themselves that they would carry for centuries. Thermopylae is remembered because it comforts us. Plataea matters because it warns us. It reminds us that sometimes The most troubling chapters of history are not written in defeat, but in victory.